Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about the very last 2 pages in your packet. It's the domain and range homework, but also the quiz review. There will not be a test this unit. There's going to be a final quiz, just because we're switching over to the new marking period. Sometimes when you just look at a homework key, it doesn't always answer the question, so I figured I would go over this with you. All right, so it says in each of the following state the domain and range, then decide if it's a function or not. Be sure to explain using words such as input, output, domain, and range. All right, so the domain and range, this can be a little tricky on a graph. Remember, D comes before R and X comes before Y. So your domain, those are all the X's being used. Well, the furthest point to the left is here. So that would be an X value of -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And the furthest point, the biggest X value to the right is this guy up here. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So your X's that are being used go from -5 to 4. That's your domain. And it's not just -5, -4, and so on. It's everything in between. It's all these decimals too. All of these values are being used. So we're going to show the domain by just using, it's kind of like when we did it's just like when we did the inequalities. They are both equal, so we're going to have our brackets going from -4 to 4. So this is, again, interval notation, a quick way to write it. Basically, this is saying it starts at -5, ends at 4. You may also see it written like this. All right, but writing it using the interval notation might be easier. All right, your range represents your y values, and our y values run up and down. So figure out the min, the absolute min, the very, very bottom of the graph. The lowest y value it gets to is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And the highest point that it gets to is up here. That's your max. And that's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your range goes from -5 up to 5. And so again, I'm going to write it using interval notation. It's going from -5 to 5 for my y values. Now, if you saw it using this notation here as a compound inequality, you might see it written like this. It's the y value, so that's the variable you see there. But again, you can just use this interval notation. All right, it's a little bit easier when you're dealing with a mapping diagram or a table. So your domain value, we didn't answer if it's a function. Is it a function? Yes, it passes that vertical line test. There's nowhere on here where you can draw a vertical line and it would intersect it twice. So yes, passes the vertical line test because each person, which we use an X, has only one birthday, or Y. Okay? All right, on this one, your domain, -4, 0, and 6. We're just listing those. All right, in a list, we put the curly brackets at the beginning and end. A couple little squiggly lines. Your range, 12, 18, and 40. Again, anytime you're making a list, we'll put those brackets. And is it a function? Does each X have only one birthday or only one Y value? No. The 6 goes to 12 and then to 18. It doesn't have 2 birthdays. So no, 6 has 2 Y values or 2 output values. You don't want to write 6 has 2 birthdays. Just replace birthdays with Y. All right, these are a little bit trickier, but again, let's talk about it. Domain and range. Domain is your X values, so that's your width. Range, your Y values, that's your height. So your domain, find the furthest point to the left, goes from -4 to 1. So we're just going to use our brackets. And then our range, the lowest point, oops, don't want to zoom. The lowest point that our graph gets to is right here, your min. So it goes from 0 up to here is the highest point. That's your max, 5. So that's your range from 0 to 5. All right, same with the next one. Domain, furthest point to the left is here, -3. Furthest point to the right is here at 4. So your domain goes from -3 to 4. Our range, let's change up the color so it's easier to see what's going on. The lowest point is down here. That's your min. And then our highest point is up here. That's your max. Your minimum value is -5. Your max is 3. So your range goes from -5 to 3. All right, I threw another one of these on. It can be a challenge with the open circle. All right, the furthest point to the left is here at -3, but it's an open circle. The furthest point to the right is here at 2. That's a closed circle. So think back to interval notation. It's still going to be -3, 2, but since it's open, we're going to use a parenthesis. And this one is going to just be a bracket still. You won't see that something like that on the Regents, but it will come up in Algebra 2. All right, our range, the lowest point is down here at -2. Now, it does actually hit -2, so that's a closed circle. All right, and the highest point is up here at 1, 2, 3. It also hits there. All right, there's something hitting at every single point along there, so those are both going to be brackets. All right, you only needed the parenthesis on this -3. But right here, you see that there's no gap in it, so you don't want to have the bracket or the parentheses. So your range goes from -2 to 3. Again, don't worry about that one. Won't see it come up too often. Okay, on the next page, a little bit of review. Determine the range, which is just your y values. That's all range is. So figure out the y values for this function given the x values, your domain of -2, 0, and 4. So I'm going to make a little table that goes from -2, or that looks at -2, 0, and 4. And then you could plug in. So you could do -2 squared minus 3, 0 squared minus 3, 4 squared minus 3. The problem is if you make any kind of mistake with your signs, if you say this is -4, that would mean -7. It's not. All right, anything squared is positive. So rather than make those mistakes, we encourage you to use your calculator. So we're going to go to y equals. You're going to type in x squared minus 3, and then to go to the table, do you remember how to get there? We're going to hit second graph. You can see the table written up there. So y equals, I'm going to type in x squared minus 3. The nice part about this is it takes care of everything for you. So now go to the table, second graph. And anytime it's a button, you'll notice that I put a little box around it to make it look like a button. Okay, so we're looking for -2 is 1, 0, and 4. 0 is -3, 4 is 13. 4, let me just double check, 13, okay. All right, so again, 4 squared, 16 minus 3, 13. 0 minus 3, -3. -2 squared is 4, minus 3 is 1. Okay, but again, use that calculator. Okay, so now answer the question. The range would be 1, -3, and 13. All right, the last part of this is just going over this graph here. The function is shown, f of x is shown, so that's its name. Evaluate f of -3. Remember, if it's f of -3, you want to find the y value. So it's the point -3 what? Well, find -3 on the x-axis, just like you were plotting a point 1 to -3. Follow it to your graph. What's that y value down there? That's the point -3, -4. So f of -3 is -4. F of 4, so find 4 on the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's the point 40. So f of 4 equals 0. All right, if you need to label it, you can. I'd put these right in your notes so that way, well, one, you have to turn this in, but you can also use all these on your tests and quizzes, so why not? All right, I'm going to change up the color for the next one. All right, the minimum or minima, you'll sometimes see it written with, instead of the it just has an A. It's your lowest point, which is down here. That's your min. So the lowest point it gets to is -4. The max or maxima or maximum is your highest point. So find the highest point way up here. So your maximum height is 1, 2, 3, 4. And I like to label it like that. That'll help us when we figure out our range. What are the zeros? Circle them on the graph. All right, so let's go with, I don't know, orange, I guess. So zeros, remember that's where it has a height of 0. So right here, I'm going to circle it. Right here and right here, those are also sometimes called roots or x-intercepts. So it's where it has a height of 0. So at -1, at 1, 2, 3, 4, and at 5, 6, 7. Okay? What's the y-intercept? That's where it crosses the y-axis. Well, let's find the y-axis. Where's our graph hitting the y-axis? Oh, right there. I'm just going to draw a little arrow up, and that's a value of 2. Is the function increasing or decreasing over the following intervals? Okay, for this, I'm going to do some highlighting. Makes it a little bit easier. All right, so let's start with increasing. If something's increasing, it's going to be going up. So we're looking for, hold on one second. So if something's increasing, it's going up from left to right. If something is decreasing, it's going down from left to right. Now these intervals, it's like looking at the x values from -3 to 1. We just want to look in there. So find -3 to 1. Well, let's see. So, oops. From, here's -3. Here's 1. So anything in this area where your x's go from -3 to 1. All right. So again, let me point that out. Here's 1. Here's -3. So from -3 to 1. Is your graph going up or down? From left to right, it's going up, so it's increasing. All right, from 1 to 5. So find 1 to 5 for your x's. Again, it's just the width. Well, here's 1. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 5. So basically, we want to focus on this area here from 1 to 5. I'm going to change up my highlighting here. So from 1 to 5, just in this area. Okay, so look at the graph itself, just in that region. So at 1, it's up here. The whole time it's decreasing. So look at the highlights there. I know that can be tricky. All right, how many turning points? Remember, a turning point is where it turns. If it's going up and then turns and goes down, that's a turning point. If it's going down and then turns and goes up, that's a turning point. All right, that's a turning point. That's a turning point. Not an end point. So it looks like, let me change up the color again here. Let's see, we haven't used blue on this one. This is a turning point. I'm going to put a little star by it. And this is a turning point. So there are, this is not a turning point. It's not turning, it's ending. It turns here. This is not a turning point because it's still going down. It just speeds up. It actually has to turn that corner. So there are 2 turning points. Oh, it said mark with an X. I put a star. So we'll put an X. X marks the turning point. All right, last one, domain and range. All right, last question. So the domain and range, it's similar to the intervals we just used. So remember, your domain is your width. So where does it start? Over here at -3 and ends over here at what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's your domain. From -3 to 8. All right, that's the width of your graph. Your range, y values, that's the height of your graph. So it goes from your min to your max. Well, the lowest point we found was here at our min of -4, and our max was up here at +4. So there's your range from -4 to 4. That covers the whole graph. All right, if you still have questions, stop in anytime. Just on Wednesday, if it's a Wednesday, email me and we can set up a time, or stop in during your regular class time on any other day. I'm happy to help you with any of this. Have a great day.